All right. Are we live? Are we live? Testing, testing. Check, check, check. Can everybody hear me? All right. Delayed but not denied. If you can hear me, can you just give me a thumbs up or a yes? Had some technical issues here. All right. It appears that we can hear. All right, good. Welcome, everybody. I'm Courtney with Amplify Hair Extensions, and we are delayed, but we are not denied. I want to thank you for being here. Today, what we're going to do, and I want to go into this particular, can we go to scene 2, please? This is all about living the sweet life and how to quickly generate 6 figures, working smart and not hard. Now, I know many of you are in the state of California, as are we. However, that doesn't apply to everybody, but you're talking about over 600,000 licensed cosmetologists who've been collectively out of work for over 6 months. Now, as of 2 weeks, that changed. Here's the conversation. How can you quickly make your comeback greater than your setback? And I want to call your attention to something. The Chinese have, in the Chinese language, there's a word, crisis, that's composed of 2 characters. And one is crisis, or rather danger, and the other one is opportunity. So what I'd like to do is jump into how we can make the most of an opportunity. Because anytime there is an obstacle, there is always an opportunity. But that also means that there is an opportunity to optimize, and then we have to look at what our obligation is. I'm going to share with you 4 things today in the little bit of time that we have that will support you to optimize and leverage your time behind the chair to generate 6 figures or more. Then we're going to break down a 5-step system on how to own every single day, no matter what, in addition to some other things. So I want you to put your seat backs and tray tables in their upright and locked position. I want to thank you for hanging on for the technical difficulties that we've had, but I think that's a perfect metaphor for where we are going. You know, I love this particular quote. It's by an ex-Navy SEAL. And Ray, if we could go full screen, I think scene 4 for this. I want everybody to take a look at this. All right. So in an ambush, your mission changes instantly. Whatever your objective you had before becomes secondary to surviving. So think about this. This is all about #adapting and overcoming. How do you make up for that COVID revenue gap? How do you make up for that shutdown? Well, here's the situation. Right now, you can't unscramble eggs. What you can do, however, the silver lining is look at what you can do to work smarter and more effectively. So in this series, this is the second of 3. We're going to jump into exactly that. Now, I don't know about you. I love the superhero genre. And whether you do or you don't, how many of you have ever had a conversation with somebody discussing, what your superpower would be if you could have one? The power to fly, the power to freeze, the power to reverse time, right? And there's always somebody a little creepy that says, the power to be invisible. But I want to propose to you that we all have a superpower. We all have a superpower. As human beings, we have a superpower. Now, the cool thing about this is your power is the power to choose, the power of choice. Think about this. Cats, dogs, kangaroos, they don't have that power. A frog just can't decide one day, you know what, I don't want to be a frog, I want to be a lawyer. But I can't tell you the amount of salon professionals that I have met who have said, I was going to medical school and I decided to become a hairdresser or an esthetician or whatever the case. Today, I'm going to invite you to choose what your superpower is. And that power of choice, you can be grateful, you can be open, positive, you can be a learner, you can be an overcomer. You can choose to be better or bitter. And the choice is always yours. So we're going to layer some mechanics on top of this and give you some strategy. I definitely invite you to make sure that you grab a pencil, pen, something to write with. Before we can start layering those mechanics, let's take a dive down this road. Your superpower, the power of being. And just to give you a quick illustration, there's two circles in life. Your circle of concern and your circle of influence. Now, your circle of concern might involve a lot of common things, right? So for instance, and you'll notice the circle of concern is much larger because it involves maybe other people or weather, traffic, world events, politics, government, war, opinion, other people's opinions. These are things that we cannot control. We have no control over this. Now, interestingly enough, your circle of concern is much smaller. And the one thing inside that circle of concern is, your circle of influence is much smaller. It's just you. The irony of tapping into your superpower of choice is when you choose to focus on your circle of influence, the circle of concern gets much smaller and your circle of influence gets much larger. And that is ultimately why you're here. So when we look at the choices that we have, I want you to consider, you can focus on what is, and that's called the have, or you can focus on really tapping into your superpower of being, and that's a lot more proactive. And I'll let you take a gander at this. Now, because we've had some technical delays, I want to quickly move into exactly what we're going to be stacking on top of this as far as the mechanics are concerned. So what does living the sweet life mean? Well, in this series, here's what we're going to focus on. How to generate $3,000 a year without adding a single client. Do you like that? If that's good, say great. In addition to that, identifying the 3 key business benchmarks, while also learning a 5-step system to turn every day into a success and increase add-on sales. Now, in my experience, and I've been in this industry, it'll be 30 years in October, I can promise you when you do all of these things, you will be living the sweet life. It doesn't matter. Let me walk that back. Technical ability is really important. However, what I want you to consider, learning a new haircut, learning a color technique, it's incredible because learners are earners. However, we have to also balance it out with business acumen because your technical ability will only account for 15% of your financial success. So if this is the target, say $150,000 for 2021, how many of you think that's a great target? Now, here's the situation. How do you go about hitting that target? One of the things that we're going to cover when we look at this are what we call KPIs, key performance indicators. And the 3 most important key performance indicators to support you in hitting this particular target will be as such. 1 is your average service ticket. Let's break this down, and then we'll talk about how you are going to generate $150,000 or more. And I know that might seem like a big stretch for some of you. Some of you might be right there. Regardless of what your gap happens to be, we're going to give you the mechanics to get there. But first, let's break this down. Average service ticket is not what you charge for a haircut. It's not what you charge for a facial or to do brows, whatever. Average service ticket is your total dollars divided by the total number of clients seen. So you could take it within a day, within a week, within a month, or 2 to 3 months. It's total dollars within a certain amount of time divided by total number of clients to give you the average service ticket per client. Here's the other key benchmark is average retail ticket. Again, that is total number of dollars generated in retail divided by the total number of clients that you saw within that period of time. And then you have your PBP. and that is your pre-booking percentage. Right, let's go to scene 3 real quick. So, let's go back to, there you go. I just want everybody to see this. I'm going to give you a bonus key benchmark. And here's the bonus. It is your rate per hour. Amazingly, in the little bit of time that we have, we're going to dive into all of these. Let's get back to what the target was. The target for 2021 is $150,000. Now, how do we do that? Let's go back to scene 5. All right. Now, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So that's $12,500 per month. And you might be looking at that going, Lance, that's a giant elephant. But let's break it down. What does that mean per week? It's about $2,900 and some change, but let's round up. $3,000 per week. Now, a couple ways that you can get there. And if you have a pencil, a pen, if you're typing, I want you to take fastidious notes here. Let's break this down. Now, we're going to work with, say, an average of 6 guests a day. 6 guests a day. Let's take a look at this. I want you to consider you're right now, many of you have been open for a week, maybe right after the shutdown was lifted a couple of weeks ago. The very next day, you were back in the salon. And I don't know how many days a week you're working. If you're like many people, at least in California, you're most likely taking advantage of every single work day that you can. However, I want you to ask yourself how sustainable that is. Now, here at Amplify Hair Extensions, we're all about supporting salon professionals to work smarter rather than harder. So allow me to just work out the roadmap. If you're working 5 days a week, 5 days a week, in order to hit $150,000, your goal needs to be $600 in service sales per day. Now, if you're seeing 6 guests a day, what does that mean? That means that you're averaging $100 a guest. For many of you, that's not too difficult. But it's really important if you're going to have a target to be able to see that target, because a person without a goal is very much like a car without a motor. It won't get where it needs to go. Now, production team, in a little bit, we're gonna have to move the graphics here. Many of you throughout this pandemic are happy to get back to work, yet you have familial obligations, which leads you to be homeschooling maybe a little one. And if that's the case, working 5 days a week might not be the situation that is ideal for you. So I want you to look at this. Working 4 days a week, your goal changes. Now, numbers tell you what emotions will not, because numbers are the lumber that you use to build your business. And if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. So this is critical. So that means the daily target goes up. Remember, you're seeing the same amount of guests. Now you have to generate $750 a day, which means that your average service ticket is only $125. Stop for a second and look at this. There's not that much of a difference between $100 per guest versus $125 a guest. And one of the things that you can do is consider, what are the options? Think about this. When you go through a drive-through, the phrase, would you like fries with that? If you simply Google, would you like fries with that? You're going to get 3.1 million hits right off the bat, because that one simple phrase has changed the service industry. Now, what are your bag of fries? Is it a conditioning treatment? Is it face framing? Think about the things that you could add on for just an extra $25. I'm sure if you think about it, you can layer on a lot of things that could really close the gap between 100 and 125. Now, here's where so many of you want to land. 3 days a week. 3 days a week, still generating $150,000. Now, to some, that might sound like a pipe dream, but it's only hard when we don't know how. So let's take a look at this, and we might have to move the graphics here. 3 days a week. 3 days a week means that you have to generate $1,000 a day. But the average service ticket on this is only $167. Now I say only, but let's take a look at what it is you can do. First of all, I want you to zoom out and look at this as your roadmap. Right? If you're logging in, take a screen cap of this. Figure out where you are and where you necessarily want to be. Now, remember, this has nothing to do with the price of your services. This is all about working smarter instead of harder. And to illustrate this, let's take a look at this. You have 4 people. They all charge the same amount for a service. In this case, let's just use a haircut. And in this example, they all service 5 customers. Now, I want you to look at this and determine which one of these people is going to win the day. Becky, at the end of the day, generates $250. Bobby generates $375. Megan generates $780. And at the end of the day, Ashley rings up $425. Now, who wins the gold medal, ladies and gentlemen? If you said Ashley, you're absolutely correct. Now, here's the question. What is Ashley doing? And can we pull up the chat? Just move that so I can see the chat, please. What is Ashley doing, or sorry, Megan doing that Bobby and Becky and Ashley are not doing enough of? Well, obviously, yes, she's doing add-ons. She's doing a lot more than just what is on the books. So I want you to consider something. What is Becky doing? She's doing the bare minimum. And although there's nothing wrong with simply doing what's on the books, there is a consequence. How many of you know other salon professionals who are parents or single mothers? How many of you might be parents or, single dads or single moms? Well, in this case, although we may have changed the names to protect the innocent and the guilty, these are real people. And I want you to consider that Megan and Becky, what they have in common above and beyond their chosen professions is they're both single mothers and they're both hairdressers. So consider this. How many more days does Becky have to work in order to generate the same amount of money that Megan's working? Over 3 days. So there's a consequence because Megan can simply work her 3-4 days if she chooses, and then she can spend the rest of the week, the other half of the week, with the people that she loves the most. And, in this industry, it's not just about generating dollars. It's about making a difference and doing so you can increase the quality of your life, knowing that we help ourselves by helping other people and vice versa. Is this tracking? Say yes. Okay, now let's take a look at this. This all comes down to average service ticket. Look at Megan's average service ticket. It's $156. Now her goal is actually $160 per guest. And I'm sharing that with you because I want you to determine what your average service ticket needs to be, regardless of what your price might be for the service that you do the most of. I'll give you a quick formula. In this case, all 4 of these service providers charge $50 for the service that they do the most of. Here's how you know if you're in the top 1 or top 10% of the industry. If you're doing triple what your base price is, in other words, a $50 haircut, you're doing $150 or more, congratulations, you're performing in the top 1%. If you're doing double of what your base price is in this example, $50 haircut, but you're averaging $100 as an average service ticket per client, congratulations, you're in the top 10%. Now, we don't have time to go into the other tiers of it. However, if you're logged on to this, it's for one particular reason. Although I may not know you personally, what I do know about you is that you're not happy just dealing and living and existing at the status quo. You came here to have more, be more, and do more. So with that, let's keep going. We do have a an auto-projecting calculator that I'll provide to all of you, and in a moment we'll break it down. But what I like to do when we look at goals is understanding that structure actually gives birth to freedom. So for some of you, it might be 100,000. For some of you, it might be 150,000. But earlier I said, numbers are the lumber that we use to build our business. So if you look at this, and Ray, let's go full screen, scene 3. If we look at this, everybody, here's what I want you to see. So that right there gives you a great roadmap for hitting 100,000 or 150,000, be it 5, 4, or 3 days a week. Again, 100,000 or 150,000. Now, everybody do me a favor, and we can go back to scene 5, I think it was. Yes. Give me a caption for this. Time is what? Yeah, time is money. In fact, now more than ever, time is the currency that we exchange with one another. Ernest Becker said this: everything has been figured out except how to live. So perhaps the better question is not what do we do about death, but what do we do about life? Because life is made up of these moments that we create with one another, and it's up to us to ensure that these moments that we create are interconnected and vital and grand to create a masterpiece of life, right? To create a masterpiece of life, something that we would willingly live again and again throughout all of eternity. This is what we can strive for. Now, team, you hear a line like that and you're blown away by the majesty and the poetry of that as a possibility. But we want to make this a reality. And I'll give you an example of exactly what it is that you can do and how you can potentially spend your time. You can spend your time or you can invest your time. So I'm going to show you just a quick example, and then we'll go ahead and stack some more mechanics on this. So this is rate per hour. And I want you to take a look at this because on one hand, you have standard hair color, and the other hand, you have amplify hair extensions. And if you're not doing hair extensions, don't even worry about it. Replace it with something else. But here's what I want you to get. Hair color in the early 80s, less than 20% of salon clients actually did hair color. Now, that's gone to 75% globally among women and over 25% among men, so much that hair color is no longer required on government passports as a form of identification. Why do I mention that? I'm mentioning that because high earning services, for instance, like hair extensions or even hair color, right, are how you actually begin to leverage your time. But hair extensions are going to do for the next decade what hair color did for the last decade. So let me show you as far as rate per hour. And again, if you're not doing hair extensions, don't worry about it, but take a look at the example. Now, standard hair color, let's say it takes you 90 minutes, and let's say you charge $150. Now, if you're doing services like balayage, it's going to take you even longer than 90 minutes, 2.5, sometimes 3 hours. But in this case, we're going to go really conservative, $150. It takes you an hour and a half. That's $1.67 a minute. Now, on the other hand, let's say you use Amplify hair extensions, and it's not just for length. You can go to Amplify, extend, cover, shape, add chemical-free color. Let's say instead of a balayage, you do a balayage. Let's say it takes you 15 minutes to do a partial volume and add color around the face. 15 minutes. That's 10 times more, $16.67. And here's the difference. 100 an hour versus 1,000 an hour. So all things being equal, time is equal. How you spend your time is completely different. And if you're interested, you can go to Amplify Hair. I'll just give you a very quick example before we really stack this thing. Here's the power of just one box, 15 minutes, right? $300 initial application, let's say, $150 for the reapplication, another $150 for the reapplication. This is the one product that you can buy once and sell 3 to 4 times. If they come in for a third reapplication, that one box generated you anywhere between $600 to $750. Now, Now that I got your brain kind of tweaking and thinking, here's what I want you to look at. How can I take this information in 5 steps and use it to absolutely own the day? Here's what I want you to take a look at. Now, let's say your first appointment is at 9 o'clock. I'm going to share with you 5 simple steps that in my experience has completely changed the lives of salon professionals. And it's a really, really simple thing. It's just about strategy. So when you're playing any game, here's what you have to know. A, you have to understand the rules. B, you have to have a goal. And C, you have to have an amazing strategy in order to leverage the playing field. So let's take a look at this. Step 1, arrive 20 to 30 minutes before your first appointment of the day. Well, Lance, my first appointment's at 9 o'clock. I gotta drop off Susie at school at 8:15. I barely have enough time to get across town and get my makeup and do my hair before my first client. Well, how am I going to stop? Let's talk about the why, and this is important. Why do you want to show up 20 to 30 minutes before your first appointment? Now, if you understand the why, you'll figure out the how. Here's why. You want to show up at least 20 to 30 minutes before your first appointment because this gives you the opportunity to be mentally, emotionally, and physically ready to take on the day. So when that first guest comes in and you meet that first guest, you are proactive, you are ready, you have looked at their client history, you looked at the last time they got a color, you looked at that consultation form, and you saw some of those common complaints and things that you didn't have time to address during that initial appointment. And you take time to strategize and plan your day. And the principle comes from this idea of beginning your day with the end in mind. Think about this. For so many of you, you're aiming for $600 a day. Others of you, you may have already set your target at $1,000 a day. So arriving 20 to 30 minutes before gives you an opportunity to really get prepared. Now, second thing you want to do is add up what is on the books. Think about this. If your goal is $600 and you happen to see that you have $475 in services on the books, your first appointment isn't until 9 o'clock, and here it is 8:35, and you realize that you have $475 on the books. Team, what's the gap? The gap is $125. Knowing that at 8:35 in the morning, before your first client shows up, you know what that is? That's power. Spell the word, power. Here's my definition: performance optimized with enhanced rewards. And that's what this is. Knowing in advance what the target is. Because if you have 5 guests that day and your gap is $125, team, it goes back to that conversation we just had a few minutes ago. All you have to do is look at how you can strategize in order to make up for that gap. So what this is, your desired result doesn't change. How you get there based upon what's in the books and what the gap is, now that's $25 per guest. So what are you going to do in order to strategize to close the gap? So now you have to have a plan. So, gosh, well, this person needs a conditioning treatment. This person, I can do a toner. Maybe this person's in for a color, but it's been about 3 months since they had a last cut. So these are things that you can start doing in advance. What do guests love more than anything? When we're thinking about them when they're not there. So now your guest comes in and you've already thought about a potential plan. Remember this principle: we help ourselves by helping other people first. So if you think about this, taking this as an opportunity to really strategize is really about putting your guests first and looking at what their potential needs are and how that intersects with the goals that you might be setting for yourself daily. And I want you to consider something. Success doesn't happen in a day. You're not going to go from, generating $50,000 and $60,000 a year to automatically generating $150,000, $100,000 overnight. So I want to be very crystal clear. Success does not happen in a day. It does, however, happen daily. And what you do daily transforms you permanently. So this is really about strategies that support you in deploying tremendous habits that will forward your success. So the fifth step, track your results. You got to track it to smack it. You've got to track it to smack it. Remember, numbers tell you what, emotions will not. You cannot manage what you do not measure. So you have to track your results. If your goal was $600 a day, $1,000 a day, did you hit it? Right? Or like Megan, did you miss it by just a few dollars? So knowing this is really key to keeping you on and off track. Think about this. Millions of Americans tuned in and watched the Super Bowl yesterday. And it was a glorious story, right? You have a 6-time Super Bowl champion going up against someone who, when Tom Brady won his first Super Bowl, I want you to consider that the quarterback that he played against yesterday was in grade school. Now he goes and fast forward, now he's playing against his hero in the Super Bowl. That's all fine and dandy. And a lot of you might not even be into football at all, but ask yourself this question. Would you ever tune in and watch a game if they did not keep score? Be it football, basketball, anything. And the answer is no. So why would you attempt to play the game called hair, skin, nails, whatever it is that you do? Why would you attempt to play this game without keeping score? Is everybody with me? Say yes. Okay, so can we go back to a full screen really quick? So here's what I would like to do. I want you to take a quick look at this. Oh, hang on for a moment. I had this yearly statistic up. For just a moment, I had this. Give me just a moment. Did anyone catch the POWER acronym? So now I'm looking at this. Yes, would you like that one more time? It is performance optimized with enhanced rewards. Does that make sense? Performance optimized with enhanced rewards. Now, I'm going to be putting something on the screen, and I want you to take a look at it. Okay. And the desktop, I had it right here. Hang on for just a moment. If anybody has a question for me, we have had some interesting technical challenges today. So I had a spreadsheet up that I wanted to share with you. And this particular spreadsheet is, hang on for a second. Oh, here we go. Can everybody see this? Okay. So here's what I want you to look at. And this is what we call the Amplify service projection sheet. So in column 1, you have the number of guests per week. What we're working with is an average of 6 guests per day. 6 guests per day, 5 days a week. Now, the cool thing about this is you can always change the number of guests. So if you're only working with 25, you can change that. Now, here's the beautiful thing. Let's say this person currently has an average service ticket of $57. What happens if they're able to increase their average service ticket per client by only $10? Now, why am I using this? I'm using this because I know if we have, say, an Amplify salon professional who does a partial volume treatment, a 15-minute treatment, they charge $300. Based upon the 30 clients, that's going to increase their average service ticket by $10. Now, I don't want to geek out too much, but I just want to show you how we got to that. Now, if you increase it by $10, look what happens across the board. Now you've taken a salon professional from generating $85,500 to the six-figure club, and you did it without adding a single customer, without adding a single guest. All you're doing is simply working smarter and not harder. Now, based upon some things that we're going to be discussing, the next question is, well, what if we can increase it by more than just $10? And that's a great question. So let's say you increase it by another $10. Take a look at this. You gave yourself a raise. Now you've gone from $85,500 to $115,500. And you did it without seeing any extra clients. Now, here's this. What we had discussed earlier, let's say if you were to now just really play big, 125, right? And look at this. Now you've gone from 85,000 to 187,000. And let's say you're now working 4 days a week instead of 5. So it just really changes the goal. And the reason I'm sharing that with you, again, team, numbers tell us what emotions will not. Numbers are the numbers that we use in order to really build our business. Now, if you're interested in this particular Amplify service projection sheet, let us know and we're happy to get this to you. One of the tabs is for service, and then the other tab is for retail. Now, and in the next series, by the way, which I believe is February 22nd, is that correct, team? February 22nd? Okay, good. We'll be looking at how you can take this information and further amplify your life and your business, all right? Now, let's pivot. Here's what I want to discuss next is what I call the Appleology approach. Why the Appleology approach? Well, you think about what Steve Jobs did. He took things that could have been potentially complicated and made it incredibly simple, and for one reason. And let's go back to scene one. The idea, it was to create a product, but more than a product. The idea was to get a small amount of people to be loyal to a product and a process and a program. And the great thing that Steve Jobs did is he made things simple and repeatable. He was known for firing many people who made things, complicated, so to speak. Think about this. How many of you have an iPhone? What version do you have? Now, usually when I ask an audience of a few hundred people, the majority of the people have iPhones. And then I always go back to this. If we were to rewind back to 2007, how many of you had the first iPhone? And generally, it's about 1.5%. Why is this relevant? And what does Appleology mean? Well, Steve Jobs focused on this. How do I get a small amount of people to spend more time with us and more money with us? That's called vertical growth. The more time and the more money we get a small amount of people to spend with Apple, the more loyal they are. So now we have vertical growth, and then we start creating a horizontal pool. And the indication of that is from 2007 to 2017, think of all the different iPhones. You had iPhone 3, 4, 4S, 5, 5S, 6, 6 Plus, etc. And now we're into 11 and 12. And I'm sure many of the loyal Appleites, when the iPhone 20 comes out, you will still be buying those. Now, what's my point? How do you get your existing customers to spend more time and more money with you? This whole entire game that we've been talking about, as far as setting goals, keeping scores, strategizing, determining what your goal is, it's not about getting more customers to come and do business with you. That will happen. Look at your existing customers and ask yourself, what can I do to service them at the highest possible level? What can I do to give them the $500 salon experience before they even walk into the door? How can I service them better? Now, if we look at this, let's go to scene 5. So I don't know if you use a consultation form, but here at Amplify, we're huge proponents of giving people repeatable systems that enable them to maximize their time behind the chair and leverage opportunities. So in this particular, and we can go full screen if we want. Let's go, boom. Okay, cool. It's playing around. Good. So if you look at this, what we're doing is it's a step-by-step repeatable system. By the way, my definition for system is save yourself time, energy, and money. If you look at this, your desired style, your goals, every customer that you have has goals. The time spent styling at home, the versatility, how they typically style their hair, their comfort level, their scalp sensitivity, right? Do they wear any hair extensions or additions? If not, no big deal. Health challenges, currently, how many good hair days are you having per month? And then here's where the juice is, where I'm most challenged. Your biggest challenges or concerns, how they rate their volume, what's perfect hair, if they could wave a magic wand, how would it look, act, and feel? So we go through all this, and here is the beauty of it, team. Let's go back to seeing the last scene that we had. Here's the beauty of it. By capturing all of this information, think about this. When you go to the doctor's office, what do? They take your temperature, they do your blood pressure, they weigh you on a scale. They're getting all of that information and all of that data for what reason? They're getting all of that data so they know exactly where you are right now. And then if there is an issue or a problem, then we start to talk about that. So does that happen just once or every single time you go to the doctor? Yes, it happens every single time. So consider this. Let's say you're the doctor of hair, the doctor of skin, the doctor of nails. Having a repeatable system it's key. The question I tend to ask people is, what's more important, the problem or the solution? And it's amazing to note that the majority of people tend to focus on the solution. They go, well, the solution's definitely more important because, when I learn how to cut with a razor, or when I learn, how to paint hair more effectively or apply hair extensions, and anytime I learn that, that's a solution and it adds value to the marketplace. And while that might be correct, let's continue with this idea of Appleology. The problem is infinitely more important than the solution. And here's why. The problem has a greater sense of urgency. The skills that you have are fantastic. Skills have utility. However, the skills only become valuable when you're able to match them with a problem that requires the skill. Keep this in mind. We earlier looked at rate per hour. And one of the things that we are focused on here at Amplify is focusing on the highest earning salon services in order to support salon professionals to be measurably successful so you can work smarter behind the chair instead of harder. So you can spend the time that you want with the people that you love, living a life by design rather than settling for a life by default. That's why we exist. I'll add something to it. You can hustle for what you want, or you can settle for what you have. What's a better choice? Keeping that in mind, what we found is the highest earning salon services that you could possibly offer were services that a lot of salon professionals were simply dabbling in because they were waiting for somebody to ask for it. And if that's the case, a lot of salon professionals perform at the level that Becky does, doing exactly what's on the books and nothing more. So why is this important? Think about the discussion that we're having right now, the problem being more important than the solution. That's right. Consultations, effective consultations, focus on multidimensional issues that your guests might be having, but don't have the platform to tell you. Keep in mind, 20% of your guests are great. They're photogenic. They know how to do their hair. You know, if they had time, they would probably be a cosmetologist. But that's only 20% of your guests. The other 80% don't possess the language, the vernacular, or the insight to really tell you what they want. They only can pretty much tell you what they believe is realistic. And therein lies the gap. But here's how we fix it, team. I'm going to share with you a formula. And it's the formula to change anything and everything. All right? Think about this. If you change the oil, you have to change it again. If you change sheets, you have to change it again. If you change diapers, you have to change it again. The more things change, the more they what? Stay the same. But change is always the first step to transformation, and that's the business that we're in. So let's take a look at this particular formula. And I want you to write this down, because this formula is the formula that will support you in transforming your business by looking at the things that you could potentially transform with your customers. And have no illusions. If you're trying to move your customer into a balayage or into hair extensions like a balayage, or you're trying to move them into a treatment, or even estheticians, massage therapists, whatever, if you're trying to move your guests into something that might benefit them, simply asking them is not going to be effective. It's a simple yes or no, but how many times have you heard this? Let me think about it. Not this time, maybe next time. So if you've heard that, here's what I want you to do. I want you to definitely dial into this. Here's the formula. Dissatisfaction times vision times first steps is greater than resistance. Let's start at resistance. Well, wait a minute, Lance, my clients love me. They're not resistant. Again, have you ever had a guest tell you, let me think about it? If the answer is yes, consider that the only reason a guest says, let me think about it, is because they don't want to think about it now. If they say not now, or maybe next time, or, you know, let me ask my husband, whether it's rejection, deflection, or third-party approval. In business, those are all forms of rejection. Now, if the name of the game is increasing your average service ticket by looking at better ways to serve your guests, this is going to be incredibly important, because the keys to any amazingly effective consultation always rest on these three things: dissatisfaction, vision, and first steps. First, let's go with dissatisfaction. If you're able to get your guests to share with you all the areas that they are not satisfied, that they are dissatisfied, from hair, color, length, texture, volume, hair loss, or even if it's just areas around the face where they wish they had more hair. If you get your guests to focus on the areas where they are dissatisfied, what happens is, regardless of however close your human connection is to your guests, I'm sure they love you, but if you're able to get them to be vulnerable and share with you all of these things, you now have opportunities to solve those problems. The next thing is vision. We always like to ask the magic wand question, because 80% of your guests just don't possess the vernacular or the vision to tell you what they really want. They'll just only tell you what they believe they can achieve based upon past experiences. I.e., if your guest has really thin, fine hair, the idea of her ever, looking or having that kind of supermodel or Kim Kardashian hair is such a dream that she would feel embarrassed to tell you. But here's the beautiful thing. If you give that person a magic wand and you say, Sarah, if you had a magic wand and you could simply wave it, describe exactly how your hair would look, act, and feel, and you listen to her, what you now have is the gap between where she currently is, called dissatisfied, and where she wants to be, called her ultimate vision. And the next thing you add on top of that is first steps. So think about all of the different areas. And think about all the different areas from color, length, texture, volume, shape. Think about all of that. And now if they're able to now add timelines, I'll give you an example. How many of you have ever had a guest who had really damaged hair? So if you just simply ask a question like this, so let's look at the condition of your hair. Let's say your goal is to sell more conditioning treatments, right? Something real simple. If you ask 10 people, would you like a deep conditioning treatment, or would you like a treatment of any kind, and you explain the benefits, 9 out of 10 are going to say no. All right? You've potentially been told you have to ASK to GET, and although that might be true, if you ask before you layer the dissatisfaction and the vision, you're simply going to get a yes or no. It's not going to be based upon anything. Now, if instead you wait and you go, all right, so Sarah, let's talk about the condition of your hair. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, healthiest condition, and 1 being like the most damaged, how would you rate the current condition of your hair? Let's say she goes, well, it's a 3. Okay, it's a 3. Now, what would you like it to be? Let's talk about your goals. What would you like it to be and by when? Well, gosh, I'd like it to be at least a 9 as soon as possible. Pause. What she's given you is her D, dissatisfaction. She's a 3. What her vision is, she wants to be a 9. And by when? First steps, as soon as possible. With that, when you then ask if she would like a deep conditioning treatment to address that issue to take her to a 9, the likelihood of her saying yes is now flipped. It's a good 9 out of 10 will say yes, because when you suggest it, it means one thing. But when they say it, it means everything. So this is all based upon Stephen Covey's book, The Speed of Trust. The higher the level of trust, the quicker the transfer of agreement. And trust is incremental. Trust has departments, right? They might trust one person with their car, but they wouldn't trust the same person with their finances. They might trust this person with their nutrition, but not with their hair, if this is tracking. So as far as you're concerned, consider this. This is all about creating a safe space, establishing and activating the speed of trust in order to get the transfer of agreement. So now you have somebody who is in a safe space, feeling vulnerable, sharing these things with you, what they like, more importantly, what they don't like or what's dissatisfying to them, what they want and by when. Now, if you lay this down as a foundation, the likelihood of you getting resistance is going to be very slim. Why? Because it's all based upon things that they are giving you. Now, we understand the principle. Where does all of this live? Let's break this down. And I'll share this with you. The consultation form that I shared with you earlier that actually looked like this, what you don't see is it is actually designed to capture their dissatisfaction, establish what their ultimate vision is, and then also move them into first steps. Now, here's what I'll say. Let's go back to scene 1 if we could. Production team, thank you very much. Team, one of the ways that you can really begin leveraging your time is by doing amazing consultations based upon these principles. Now, I'm going to give you an amazing tip. And the tip that I'm going to give you is to begin utilizing the silver lining of this unfortunate epidemic, this health epidemic that we're all experiencing. And that silver lining is called virtual consultations. I cannot tell you or stress or give you enough solid, measurable examples to illustrate and punctuate the importance of utilizing this. Remember, time is currency. Now more than ever, you have guests, as excited as they might be to come in, you have many guests that simply want to come in, get their service, and leave. Furthermore, to add to that, how many of you are now dealing with critical time issues? You only have so many hours that you can earn behind the chair. So consider this. If you have 6 guests in a day and you say at least 48 to 72 hours before their appointment, shoot them a message. I'd like to schedule a virtual consultation. We can use FaceTime. The whole entire world has been Zoomified. So you can use Google Hangouts, FaceTime, you can use Microsoft Teams, Skype, and the list goes on. But I don't know of a single, and all I do is talk to salon professionals day in and day out, right? Of the 6 different brands that we manage, I can tell you this, I haven't heard of a single customer who has said no to an invitation to have a virtual consultation. Now, here are the benefits. And if you're currently doing virtual consultations, let me know. Let me look at this chat window, like this sheet. It's too blurry on the platform. Okay, good. So if you would like that, just email us, info@amplifyhair.com, and we're happy to follow up with you on any of these things. So here are some of the benefits of virtual consultations. If you have 6 clients coming in and you do a virtual consultation on all of them, even just 10 minutes a piece, you're not only going to save yourself an hour behind the chair, but here's the beauty of it. First of all, you're seeing them without a mask. The eyes are the windows to the soul. However, in order to really get a sense of what somebody is thinking and feeling, et cetera, and so on, the freedom that you have being without a mask gives you an opportunity to have a more intimate connection. 2, it gives you an opportunity to assess what their hair concerns and needs are prior to them coming in. You can use the same formula. Where they're currently dissatisfied, you can use the consultation and go through this. What their ultimate vision is. First steps, most important. Now, we have you down for a cut and color. Let's look at, you mentioned some other challenges. Here's where you are, here's where you want to be by when. So you can utilize all of this. It will help you in adding on additional services prior to the guest actually coming in. It will actually support you in adding additional retail purchases before the guest comes in. You can have it all ready for them, bagged up in a touchless exchange, and you can do this all during your virtual consultation. If time is the new currency, and it definitely is, and time is money, save yourself time, energy, and money. That's the system. Save yourself time, energy, and money by inviting all of your guests who are coming in this week and next week to do a virtual consultation with you. The time that you put in to doing this virtual consultation will set you up to win. It'll increase your average service ticket. It will increase your average retail ticket. It will increase loyalty while also establishing a deeper connection with them. Well, although you might be on camera, you and them without a mask will have a deeper, more intimate connection, and you'll ultimately set yourself up to win. Team, if you're not doing this already, I implore you to do it. My friend Robert Cromian's down the road here in San Diego doing virtual consultations. My friend Nick Arrojo up in Brooklyn doing virtual consultations. All of our Amplify salon professionals who are doubling and tripling their average service ticket every single day doing virtual consultations. If your goal is to attempt to close the revenue gap created by the shutdowns and by this COVID situation and scenario, if that is your goal, you can't unscramble eggs and you can't rewind the past, but what you can do is make the most of the present by strategizing it, because it's the person that has the best strategy that ends up playing the best game. And there's 2 ways to play, team. You can play to win or you can play to get by. And if you logged on here, I imagine it's because you came to win. And if you're playing to win, you're only playing against other people who determined and decided that they were going to win as well. So I know that in order to go to bed satisfied, you've got to wake up determined. And I want to thank and acknowledge you for logging in and even fighting through some of the technical issues we had, because we got off to a late start, but we were, again, delayed but not denied. So I'm Lance Courtney, Vice President of Amplify. And on behalf of myself and the team here at Amplify, I want to thank you, and I want to thank Salon Republic, and I want to acknowledge you for tapping in and doing what most people don't want to do, which is really invest in themselves in business education in order to fast forward, do what most people cannot afford to do. So follow us on Instagram. You can follow me at Lance Courtney. You can also follow at Amplify Hair. You can email us if you have any questions about any of the systems and things that we have covered. And we'll look forward to seeing you for our third series, which is going to be February 22nd on how to amplify your life and your business. Thank you, and God bless everybody.